What if you could improve your life by just 1% every day? Imagine the possibilities. Now let's take a moment to ponder upon that thought. What does a mere 1% signify? It seems so small, almost insignificant, doesn't it? But let's delve a bit deeper. This 1% is not merely a number. It's a philosophy, a mindset, a way of life. It's about making tiny improvements every single day that compound into massive results over time. This is the power of the 1% rule. Now let's introduce you to John. John is an everyman, a middle-aged chap who feels stuck in a rut. His life is a series of monotonous routines, and he yearns for change, for improvement, but he doesn't know where to start. He's overwhelmed by the mammoth task of transformation. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? We've all been there at some point, staring at the mountain of change and feeling dwarfed by its enormity. But then, John stumbles upon the 1% rule. The idea intrigues him. 1%, he thinks, that's doable, manageable. It's not daunting like overhauling his life overnight. It's a small step, a minor tweak, a slight shift every day. So John decides to give it a shot. He pledges to improve himself by just 1% every day. It could be anything. Lifting slightly heavier weights at the gym, running just a little bit farther than yesterday, choosing a healthier meal over junk food. The focus is not on the magnitude of the change, but on the consistency of improvement. As we watch John gearing up to embrace this new philosophy, let's remember that the journey to transformation doesn't have to be a giant leap. It can be a series of small, incremental steps. 1% might seem minuscule, but its power lies in its potential to compound and yield significant results over time. John is about to embark on a transformative journey, one small step at a time. And so can you. Because sometimes it's the smallest steps that lead to the biggest changes. John, like many of us, had aspirations. He wanted to be healthier, happier, and more successful. But change, as we all know, can be daunting. It's like standing at the foot of a mountain, looking up at the peak, wondering how on earth you'll ever get there. John decided to start small, embracing the power of the 1% rule. He swapped his usual lunchtime burger for a salad, a tiny shift that felt doable. He chose to walk to work instead of driving, a small step that not only improved his fitness, but also gave him time to clear his head before the day began. But the real magic happened when he realized that these changes weren't as scary as he'd initially thought. The mountain wasn't so intimidating when he focused on the path just a step ahead, rather than the peak far in the distance. John quickly realized that these small changes were not as intimidating as he once thought. As days turned into weeks, John began to see the changes. They were small, but they were there. Every morning, when he laced up his running shoes, he found he could run just a little bit further. The weights he lifted at the gym felt a touch lighter. His body was transforming, but more than that, his whole attitude towards life was shifting. John was experiencing the magic of compounding. Each day, he was getting just 1% better. 1% might not seem like much, but over time, those incremental improvements began to add up. Bit by bit, John was building momentum, and this momentum was driving him forward towards his goals. His meals became healthier, more balanced. He swapped his habitual soda for water, his chips for fresh fruit. He began to notice a surge of energy that he hadn't felt before. He woke up feeling refreshed and ready to face the day. His sleep was more restful, his mind clearer. He was not just nourishing his body, he was nourishing his soul, and it didn't stop there. As he became more active and ate healthier, John's performance at work started to improve. The fog that had once clouded his mind began to lift, replaced by a clarity and sharpness that he had not experienced in years. His productivity soared. His ideas flowed more freely. His colleagues began to notice the change, commenting on his renewed vigor and enthusiasm. John was becoming a living testimony to the power of the 1% rule. His life was changing in ways he had never imagined. Small, consistent improvements were leading to significant transformations. It was not a sudden, dramatic shift, but rather a slow, steady progression. He was evolving, growing, becoming a better version of himself. And it all started with that 1%, that tiny, seemingly insignificant amount that over time led to massive results. John was not just changing his habits, he was changing his life. John's journey was not about radical overnight transformations, it was about consistency. Consistency is the secret ingredient in the recipe of success. It's not about making a monumental leap once, but about taking small steps steadily day after day. Now consider the 1% rule. It's a simple concept, but it's the backbone of John's journey. Every day he strived to be just 1% better than he was the day before. It might not seem like much, but over time, those 1% improvements added up. Like rolling a snowball down a hill, the momentum built. Each tiny gain set the stage for the next, creating a positive feedback loop of growth and improvement. John's consistent efforts, bit by bit, day by day, led to significant changes over time. This is the power of consistency. This is the magic of the 1% rule. John's journey shows us that small, consistent improvements can lead to massive results. John's life has improved significantly, all thanks to the power of the 1% rule. This rule, seemingly so simple, has a profound impact when applied consistently. It's not about making grand gestures or drastic changes, rather, it's about making small, manageable improvements on a daily basis. Remember how John started? He began with lifting just a tad heavier weights, running just a smidgen farther, and eating just a bit healthier. These were not earth-shattering changes, but they were consistent. And that's the key, consistency. Over time, these tiny gains compounded into big results. John's health, stamina, and overall well-being improved dramatically. This is the power of the 1% rule, the power of tiny gains leading to big results. So what if you could improve your life by just 1% every day? Imagine the possibilities, then make them a reality.